Hey, good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Gadi Schwartz coming to you from Los Angeles. And here are the stories we're watching tonight, starting with a world of uncertainty for the people of Maui.
The fact that they're making it difficult for us to try and go back to where we're from, it's just hard and unbelievable. I mean, I still have loved ones that's trapped, for example, my dad.
It has been nearly a week since the wildfires swept parts of the island, but the big question now is, how long will it take to reclaim some sense of normalcy, if ever? And Donald Trump's fourth indictment charges him with running a, quote, criminal racketeering enterprise. But some of his fellow Republicans don't see it that way.
We see the legal system being weaponized against political opponents. That is un-American and unacceptable. At the end of the day, we need a better system than that.
And Hollywood studios make a new offer to writers on strike. Could WGA members be on the verge of getting back to work for the first time in more than 100 days? And we're going to tell you why a current U.S. congressman and former White House doctor is being tackled and handcuffed by police troopers in that video.
I'm going to call the governor tomorrow. I don't want to talk to him about this. This is ridiculous.
We're arguing.
Ridiculous.
There are now 99 confirmed dead in the Maui wildfires, and officials expect that number to rise even more. And driving through Lahaina, it looks like an ash-covered ghost town, and only about a quarter of that area has been surveyed. Teams are going through with cadaver dogs right now to find any remains, and starting today, Maui officials are starting the heartbreaking job of identifying the dead and then notifying their families. And tonight we are learning about some of the victims, like the entire family of 4 that died trying to escape the fires. The bodies of the Tone family were found in a car near their home. Or 68-year-old Franklin Trejos, who died shielding his dog Sam. Their remains were found by a close friend who says that Franklin was filled with love and laughter. As people grieve and the search and rescue continues, some locals are pointing out this disturbing divide. On one side of the island, you have a Hawaii that's trying to recover after a massive loss, while the other side of the island continues to function as a tourist's paradise.
Tourists are still snorkeling in the beaches in Lahaina, jumping into the waters while there's still bodies. They're still trying to pull bodies out. 48 hours later, that is so disrespectful, and that is why you guys slap in the face. Get treated the way you guys do when you guys come here, because that's so disrespectful. There is no aloha left. You guys take it.
And NBC's Tom Llamas is with us now from Maui. Tom, today, another extremely emotional day for a lot of families there, right? What are you seeing and hearing?
Yeah, Gadi, you know, it's kind of strange. Even though the wildfires are now contained throughout Maui, they're still tormenting all the people of this island, and I'll explain why. Because with each passing day, they're either finding the remains of more victims or they're actually identifying bodies. We're nearly 100 victims so far in this fire from Lahaina. They've been able to identify 4 people so far, so that shows you, like, how slow the process is going. But people every day are getting bad news. They're still scrambling to find places to live. They're still scrambling to figure out if they have enough supplies to get by. They're trying to figure out how they're going to have a livelihood, how they're going to make money. And today we spent some time with a couple. They're actually expecting their first child. They evacuated on Tuesday. The mother-to-be is 9 months pregnant, and they've already had to move around 3 or 4 times. They're finally in a place where they can stay for 6 months, but the fire took their boat, it took their home, it even took the nursery that their neighbors there in the Lahaina neighborhood had basically painted for them. Here's what they told me.
I just didn't want to leave, like, where we had built the nursery, where we, like, we're going to bring our baby home to. Birth alone is such a traumatic experience, and then going through that along with this, it seems like I won't be able to do it, but just trying to stay strong for him.
And she actually had to go to the hospital 2 days ago. She thought she was going into labor, but it was a false alarm. So she's back now waiting. She's due at the end of the month. But Gadi, you got to imagine, you know, all the stress on that poor mother-to-be, on her partner, escaping a wildfire that killed so many people. They now have no business. They had no home, and they're about to bring a child into this world.
Oh, at 9 months pregnant. That is unbelievable. Now, I know the cause of these fires is still under investigation, but we're starting to see what looks like the first lawsuits being filed, and they seem to be taking aim at the electric company, right? Do they Do they know how this fire started? Can they say
Hawaiian
conclusively?
Electric. They don't. We don't know just yet. I pressed the president and CEO of Hawaiian Electric yesterday during a news conference. She said they're still very early in the investigation. I told her it had been nearly 6 days so far and people wanted answers. The lawsuits are alleging that the power company, the utility, Hawaiian Electric, should have shut off the power when those hurricane-force winds picked up, or at least when the winds started to get very strong. Now, the president, I asked her about this, said that sometimes that could actually cause more hardships because it could cut off power to people who have medical supplies, people who are elderly. She also seemed to allude to the fact that maybe they didn't have the potential or the power to even do that. Essentially, they didn't have the mechanisms to do that. There's been a lot of reporting and there's been lawsuits in California, as you know, where down power lines have caused deadly wildfires, and that's what they're going to look at here. We have some new reporting today where I talked to a guy who lives in Lahaina. He shot video. He told me he saw where the fire started in Lahaina. It started in his area just across the road. He has videos on Facebook, and he showed us a video that he said a power line snapped. He heard it snap. It hit the dry brush, and it started sparking. He has the videos on Facebook. He tells us that he thinks that some of the fires were started by down power lines. I'm sure they're going to investigate all of that. Hawaiian Electric, for their part, says they can't comment on pending litigation, but that they are looking into everything and that they followed their high wind protocols.
Some remarkable reporting there. Tom, I also wanted to ask you about this. On top of all this, even all the way out here on the mainland, we're seeing so many reports of real estate investors that seem to be trying to capitalize on the situation and possibly buy burned land from locals. Is that actually happening?
Yeah, Gadi, there's some real sick puppies out there. And when we first started hearing this, we thought they were just rumors. But then yesterday, I met a woman who came on our show on Top Story, and she detailed for me exactly what was happening. Here's what she told us.
It is disgusting. We have real estate investors and speculators going around calling our victims, offering to give them cash and buy their property. We've already been displaced enough, and we plan to have a seat at the table in rebuilding Lahaina and ensuring that the rich cultural history of Lahaina is protected and that the multi-generational families get to come back home.
So Gadi, you hear there what some of these people are going through right now. They're trying to find their loved ones. They're trying to find jobs. They're just trying to get by. And then they have people trying to offer them cash to buy their distressed properties. It's pretty gross what's happening, but that is what's happening here on the ground in Maui. Gadi, back to you.
Unbelievable. Tom Yamas, thanks so much, buddy. And as investigators narrow down the exact cause of the fires, our reporting is making one thing extremely clear. There were clearly missteps that escalated that devastation, and NBC's Noah Pransky lays out what we know right now.
It could take months, maybe years of investigating to determine exact causes of the fire, mistakes that may have been made, and a timeline of events. But let's unpack the best reporting we have as of right now, because it paints a picture of chaos, despair, and some missed opportunities to save lives. This fire story starts with wind. And actually, we're going to zoom out to 2 days before Maui was aflame.
The National Weather Service actually gave us the red flag warning ahead of time.
Sunday, August 6th. That's when the National Weather Service issues a fire weather watch related to the powerful winds driven by Hurricane Dora off to the island's south. The morning of Tuesday, August 8th, a series of small fires break out, including one about 1.5 miles from the ocean. Those fires, according to officials, were 100% contained a few hours later. But the wind continued to whip trees, roof tiles, and power lines, many of which reportedly stayed energized. Okay, key moment here, 3:15 p.m. That's when the Lahaina fire grows so large, for the first time, it can be seen from space.
Oh my God, I think we need to load up the car maybe.
The scene is still 1 mile away from the ocean, but the fire was moving fast thanks to those winds and acres upon acres of burnt out non-native grasses ahead of it. First responders, already stretched thin from the morning fires, struggled to keep up with the flames.
And then I saw one Fred dead on the ground like a piece of charcoal.
But state officials said the 80 warning sirens around the island never sounded. And Maui Emergency Management didn't order the immediate evacuation of the crowded neighborhoods near Lahaina's downtown, even as fire and smoke started overwhelming neighborhoods. The evacuation order came finally at 5:50 p.m., but by that point, residents had already started taking fate into their own hands.
Just seemed like every second was 10 hours waiting.
But not everyone fled from the flames by car. Some resorted to the Pacific Ocean or swimming pools in the middle of the inferno, one that would burn for days, claiming homes, livelihoods, and lives, and also raise questions about how the deadliest natural disaster in the state's history might have been avoided. Noah Pransky, NBC News.
And the people of Maui right now need so much help: food, clothing, shelter, water, mental health services. But despite losing so much, some locals are channeling that aloha spirit and working to help others during this trying time. And joining us now is survivor Ryan Hickey and his friend Monica Gasso. Ryan, your home and your business burned down during these fires. I just want to say I'm so sorry for what you're going through. Can you walk us through what happened?
Well, my story is not special or uncommon. The flames came and I ran away and grabbed my dog, and Alexa from Mocha Roots was kind enough to shelter me until we saw the flames start to get closer. So I had another friend on the other side of the island, stayed with her. But then we woke up in the morning and everyone was feeling helpless. And we thought, the whole island, just an outpouring of support. So people were getting in trucks or boats or grabbing supplies and making things happen. And when I started getting on social media, trying to figure out how best I could help, it was, social media was a wildfire itself. It was disorganized and chaotic, and there wasn't a single voice kind of saying, these are the resources available. This is where to drop off supplies. And so I called up Monica, who's an amazing web designer, and we thought maybe our best talents are to try to consolidate these messages that are going out. Every government organization or NGO or just, people looking to help, we're all yelling out, different pieces of the puzzle that they've solved or trying to solve. And so we tried to put those puzzles together into this website so that it was a roadmap and you'd find some support from places that maybe you didn't know were there. Or, when I was looking for housing, then I scrolled down and found where I could find clean water. Maybe I didn't even know clean water was an issue. Or, the YMCA is putting on a charity event for kids with trauma therapists and counselors and entertainment. So we're trying to scrub all the information we could to put out a reputable list of resources for people. It's not our content; it's our trying to organize and put a place where you can reach out and find somebody to help, or a place to help, or a place to volunteer, or a shelter for yourself, or you're an expecting mother. These are the resources for you. I can't be more proud and honored to be a part of this culture and this family and this society we have built on Maui. All the people that just jumped right into action. There's a Hawaiian sailing canoe that came over from Oahu yesterday, and there's Fire Bucket Brigade offloading supplies, and to the point the island is giving, to the point where there's actually a diaper shortage on the rest of the island. Because everyone has gone just above and beyond to say, friends and family, we're here to help you right now. And I just want to thank everybody. And if we can help just, one person with the website, it's great.
One person. I think you guys are reaching so many more people, especially in this time of need. Monica, one of the things we keep hearing people talk about is the aloha spirit. Just for us here on the mainland, what is the aloha spirit, and how does it play a role in what you guys have done?
Yeah, I've really just never witnessed such a sheer amount of rally in my life. Everybody in every way they know how is coming together and doing what they know how to do to help, in every way possible. And that's kind of what I'm trying to aggregate all into one place in this site. You know, there's everybody from, you know, a single person wanting to lend an extra set of hands to a mental health professional who wants to volunteer services to really large scale efforts in coordinating, you know, helicopters and boats and whatnot. And so seeing all of that massive community outpouring of support has just been really heartwarming. And we're doing what we can to make sure that all of that help is findable by the people who need it.
Brian and Monica, you guys are beacons of hope in this time of despair. Thank you so very much for everything that you're doing.
Thanks for helping get the word out.
Happy to do it. Yes, thank you.
The people of Maui will make sure that the aloha spirit lives on. We'll be right back.
So proud to live on Maui. People are going to make it.
Hey there, welcome back. And here are some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. We're learning more about the house explosion in Pennsylvania that killed 5 people over the weekend. Apparently, the homeowners were having issues with their hot water tank, but the exact cause of the blast is still under investigation. In Philadelphia, a 17-year-old was arrested after allegedly supporting Islamic extremists. The FBI says he was radicalized online and had communicated with a global terrorist group affiliated with al-Qaeda.
Most concerning, however, was the evidence that he had access to firearms and had purchased items and materials commonly used in the construction of improvised explosive devices. Some of these purchases had just occurred in the last few weeks.
And remember Sam Bankman-Fried, the founder of the collapsed crypto exchange FTX? Turns out he used money he allegedly stole from customers to donate to more than $100 million worth to political campaigns. Federal prosecutors charged him with 7 new counts of conspiracy and fraud. And the entire police department in a small Minnesota city just resigned. The mayor there said it was all over pay issues. The current force will only be on duty till August 24th, but it's still up in the air what the police department's going to look like after that. And how's this for a team mascot? In Tennessee, a black bear ran onto a high school football field just as the team was about to practice. The coach said the bear eventually left after about 10 minutes and that it was just another day in the Smoky Mountains. And out of that big news out of Georgia, former President Trump has been indicted again for the 4th time, this time in the state of Georgia. A 98-page indictment released late last night says that Trump, along with 18 other co-defendants, refused to accept that he lost the 2020 election in the state and that they knowingly and willfully joined a conspiracy to unlawfully change the outcome of the election in favor of Trump. The 18 other co-defendants include key figures like former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, lawyer Rudy Giuliani, and a bunch of others. And the indictment is 41 counts against Trump and his allies. Trump himself getting hit with 13 new charges, including numerous conspiracy charges and 1 count of violating Georgia's RICO Act. We're going to get into what RICO is in just a second, but the Fulton County District Attorney is asking this to go to trial as soon as possible, independent of the other ongoing investigations into the former president.
I don't have any desire to be first or last. I want to try him and be respectful for our sovereign states. We do want to move this case along, and so we will be asking for a proposed order that occurs a trial date within the next 6 months.
Meanwhile, Trump on Truth Social calling Fani Willis corrupt and the whole thing nothing but a witch hunt. And NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now. Danny, we just saw that recap of what RICO is. So what do you make of the charges and the fact that there are so many co-defendants in this indictment?
The RICO charges are certainly interesting, but arguably, I mean, the conspiracy charges are just as powerful. Hallie's explanation of RICO was excellent there. It's a really complex law and hard to follow. I mean, basically, it's an enterprise plus 2 or more racketeering acts. But conspiracy law, just as powerful. Conspiracy is an agreement, some unholy agreement to achieve some unlawful objective. And then, here's the key, some overt act in furtherance. And those 2 laws, conspiracy and RICO, help us understand all the acts that are alleged in this indictment, because some are just overt acts. Act number 57, so-and-so reserved a room at the state capitol for a meeting. That's not a crime, but it can suffice for an overt act for a conspiracy, at least in theory. Some of the other overt acts are also predicate crimes. Again, it gets really confusing, but the indictment tries to lay them out as best it can, knowing, of course, that some are going to overlap. Some of these acts are going to overlap. It's going to get confusing.
Not only are they going to overlap there, we're talking about 4 different indictments, some of their being overlap between those different investigations. Fani Willis was also asked about her communication with Jack Smith. She responded like this. Let's take a quick listen.
Have you had any contact with the special counsel about the overlap between this indictment and the federal indictment?
I'm not going to discuss our investigation at this time.
Now, in the past, she said she wouldn't even recognize Jack Smith if he was standing like next to her in an elevator or something. But looking at the 2 cases here, it does seem like there is a lot of potential overlap. One state, the other federal. But could double jeopardy come into play here at all?
First, I love that answer that you just played. I'm not going to discuss the investigation at this time, as you're standing at a podium discussing the investigation at this very time. But look, I would have answered the same way. I think she may have been caught off guard and didn't want to reveal that maybe she had a phone call with Jack Smith. I still think there's very little communication between these state authorities and federal authorities. That's just based on my experience. These are independent investigations. They don't charge the same crimes. Some are federal. The others are state. They don't share jurisdiction over these crimes. Feds only prosecute federal crimes and state only prosecutes state crimes. So maybe she had a few phone calls, but I don't think there was some giant uptick in communication between the Fulton County DA's office and Jack Smith special counsel's office in the last week or so. I think they run these totally independently, but with a caveat. They watch what each other does publicly like a hawk. I would do the same thing. I mean, after all, after Jack Smith indicted Donald Trump with an entire section of the indictment titled Georgia, you better believe the Fulton County DA's office is going to look very closely at that to, number 1, see if they missed anything. Number 2, to probably want to be consistent.
And Jack Smith probably looking back as well. Danny Ceballos, thanks so much. And NBC's Vaughn Hillier joins us now. Vaughn, what's been the reaction from the Trump camp here?
Gadi, it's been defiance for Donald Trump, as we saw in indictments 1, 2, and 3. For Donald Trump, he is going full steam ahead with the fraudulent election claims that got him into these indictments in the first place. He has continued to call this a rigged 2020 election. He told me this weekend when I was with him in Iowa that he would not plead guilty if he were indeed indicted, as he has been here in Georgia. For Donald Trump, he has made this clear, not only through his counsel, which called this process an unfair process, but he himself in just this afternoon in numerous social media posts, and one in which he directly articulates, quote, all of these Biden administration bogus trials and cases, including the locals, should be brought after the 2024 presidential election. That is a new call by Donald Trump, but one that is perpetuating his concern that this could negatively impact his Republican presidential bid, because last night Fani Willis, the district attorney, said that she'd like this trial to begin within 6 months. It is hard to fathom that would actually become a reality, but if that were in fact to be the case, that would be in the middle of the Republican primary process. And for Donald Trump, he does not want these trials to happen until after the 2024 presidential election.
Vaughn, we're now 4 indictments deep. After the first couple, you saw people doubling down, I guess tripling and quadrupling down now. Are we starting to see a divide among the Republican Party with this 4th indictment, or is it basically what we were seeing before with those lines being drawn?
We've really seen the lines drawn here, and for Donald Trump, he knows that he has what is seemingly baked in support. His support is actually increased if you look at it through the polling data that we have. Back at the time of his first indictment in New York on March 30th, he was out up above Ron DeSantis by about 15 percentage points, Gadi, in national polls. But then by the time of his second indictment, that had doubled, and And right now, the current average of national polls has him up by 39 percentage points over Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump himself last week said that he welcomed a fourth indictment because he has only gotten politically stronger. And that is true, at least among the Republican electorate. But you have seen really his Republican rivals not go on the attack. Ron DeSantis, Tim Scott, Vivek Ramaswamy continue to call this a politicized effort on the part of the justice system here in Atlanta, but also at the federal level. And so right now, Donald Trump really isn't getting many attacks from within his own party on this front.
Vaughn Hilliard, one of the wisest correspondents I know. Vaughn, thanks so much for joining us, brother.
I appreciate you, my friend.
And coming up, there are some big developments today on the writers' strike. So could the months-long stalemate be over? We've got those details. But first, you got to see this. A 3-year-old got a ticket, but for a very good reason.
I wrote you a ticket. You know what you're being charged with? Are you listening? You know what you're... You know what you're being charged with? For being too cute and having the bluest eyes I've seen all day. You keep that forever.
Guilty as charged. We'll be right back. Hey there, welcome back. And here's what's happening on the West Coast tonight. The man accused of stabbing the founder of Cash App pleaded not guilty today to the murder. Nima Momeni allegedly stabbed Bob Lee in San Francisco back in April and left him to die. Prosecutors say Momeni was angry that Lee had some sort of relationship with his sister, which led to the attack. His trial has been set for October 2nd. And city workers in San Jose are standing down on the largest planned strike in decades. More than 4,000 workers from 2 unions called off their strike today, which would have shut down a lot of essential services in that city. A tentative agreement with the city council gives workers 14.5% raise over the next 3 years. And dangerous heat is hitting the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rocky Mountains this week. The National Weather Service says folks there should get ready for triple-digit temperatures that are expected to break records. Luckily, relief isn't too far out of reach. Cooler temperatures are expected to slide in by Thursday. And it has been over 100 days since members of the Writers Guild started striking. And today, there seems to be some sign of hope that the two sides, the writers and Hollywood studios, could be bringing this thing to an end. The WGA is set to respond to a proposal the studios presented last Friday, and CNBC's Julia Borstein has more on where negotiations stand. Julia?
Senior media industry executives tell me they're optimistic about progress between the WGA and the AMPTP. That's the organization representing the large media companies, including CNBC and NBC's parent company, Comcast. Now, this comes after a productive meeting between both sides on Friday. Now, while picketing continues, sources telling me that the East Coast leadership of the WGA has flown out to Los Angeles for meetings this week, meetings in which they'll respond to the AMPTP's proposed pay increases and streaming compensation. The studios have reportedly reassured screenwriters that they won't replace them with AI tools, and they've also offered minimum staffing requirements for the first time. They've even reportedly discussed sharing streaming data. Now, there is talk that the increases in streaming royalties that were won by the Directors Guild could be used as a template for these talks, and then an eventual writers deal could be used as a template for the Actors Guild to come to a deal as well. Now, all of this comes as the Screen Actors Guild strike now tops 1 month, and the Guild announces that it will no longer allow actors to work on indie, non-AMPTP projects in the U.S. as it looks for more negotiation leverage. The strikes have already cost the U.S. economy an estimated $4 billion, according to the Milken Institute, which says costs will grow to $5 billion in the next month, and then will rise even faster if workers are laid off and entertainment-related businesses start to shutter. Sources telling me that if things are not resolved with actors or close to resolution by Labor Day, we will see more movies pushed from the fall into the spring or later next year. And I'm hearing a lot of fear that there could be massive damage done to the movie industry and people's familiarity and being used to going out to the movies. Back over to you guys.
And here's something you don't see every day. A former White House doctor under both Presidents Obama and Donald Trump cussing out cops while they wrestle him to the ground at a rodeo.
You came in, you flew in, and you were in full-on
I did ask you to get back, and you did not get back.
You better recalculate.
Multiple people asked you to get back.
Nobody asked me to get back.
Yes, they did.
All right, and joining us now is NBC's Ryan Nobles. Ryan, not only was he a White House doc, the guy we just saw, Ronnie Jackson, he's a Republican congressman in Texas, right? So set the scene for us. How did this go down?
Yeah, so the way Ronnie Jackson describes it, that he was at this rodeo in the northern part of Texas, and he heard that there was a young woman who was in medical distress, that she was having a seizure, and his doctor instincts kicked in, and he went to help. And then when he got there, he got into a bit of a confrontation with law enforcement officers who were there, who really didn't know who he was and that he was there trying to help. The back and forth was all caught on their body cam video footage, and some of it got a little bit heated. Take a listen to a little bit more of what happened there.
I'm an ER doc.
Okay.
I went to 4 years of medical school and 4 years of residency.
I'm trying to tell you, when somebody tells you to get back, you get
Nobody
back.
told me to get back.
I did. I had to tell you twice.
I'm going to call the governor tomorrow. I don't want to talk to him about this. This is ridiculous,
Quit arguing.
Ridiculous.
So obviously Jackson felt disrespected because he does have a medical degree, and also he is a sitting member of Congress. But it was clear that these law enforcement officers didn't know who he was. It's also important to point out, though, Gadi, that now that he's a member of Congress, he's not a practicing medical doctor. So his role in all of this is certainly has been brought into question. But at the very least, Ronnie Jackson feels as though he did nothing wrong.
And how did this end? I mean, was he arrested at all? Was he allowed to just leave?
Yeah, so there was no arrest. Police did say at the time that they were concerned that he may have been under the influence of some sort of substance. That's something that Jackson himself denies. He then took to social media platforms to really defend his actions that night. He said that he would never apologize for what he did that night, that he was working to try and help someone who was in distress. He said that if he had to do it again, he would still step up and act in a life-threatening situation, and he'll always help someone in need and will not apologize for that. He then went on to say that he was glad that the video came out, that he said that it shows the incompetence of the law enforcement officers involved. And he said that most law enforcement officers, most sheriffs in Texas are some of the best in the country. But he said that these sheriffs in Carson County are not among them. Gadi.
NBC's Ryan Nobles. Thanks so much. And in Denver, police just released body cam footage from an alleged domestic dispute that quickly turned deadly there. Investigators say 36-year-old Brandon Cole was shot and killed by an officer who thought he was holding a knife. It turns out it was actually just a black marker. We're going to show you that body cam footage, but just once, and we've got to warn you, it's graphic.
Yo, Brandon. What's up? Brandon, don't. Pull it up. Do not. Dude, you start turning the car with cocaine. Listen to what I'm saying, Brandon. Listen to what I'm saying, Brandon.
Now, you can hear one of the officers trying to talk Cole down. Then Cole starts coming towards him and is struck with a taser. He then charges at the other officer, who shoots him twice right in front of another woman there and a small child. NBC's Aaron McLaughlin is following this story for us and joins us now. Aaron, we see what happens in that video, but can you walk us through what might have happened before this confrontation?
Yeah, well, Gadi, police are calling this a tremendous tragedy. It began as an apparent domestic violence dispute. According to the police, the neighbors called 911 saying that 36-year-old Brandon Cole had pushed his wife from her wheelchair and was, quote, going after his teenage son. When police arrived at the scene, you can hear in the body camera footage the wife say, "Please don't draw out your weapons." And then she also said she needed an ambulance. Then the altercation. And you can see in the footage this jarring image of this small child directly behind Brandon Cole when the police opens fire in that direction, shooting and killing Cole. That is the subject, or was the subject of, in part, this press conference that the Denver police chief had earlier today. Take a listen to what the police chief said specifically about the presence of that woman and child behind Brandon Cole.
I think you can see in the video that when she finally deploys her duty weapon, the person is so close to her that her view of that young child and that other person are not even clear to her. And so, certainly that was a consideration, but I think it was just not much time to act before she was overrun by that individual.
Now, police are also saying that both the child and the woman were unharmed in this altercation. Nevertheless, a real tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we know anything else about the officer who fired?
Well, we don't know much. At this point, police are not releasing her name. We know that she has been with the Denver police force since 2019. She has never been involved in a shooting incident. In that body camera footage, you can hear her call in on radio that she thought he was armed with a knife. Police say that is what she thought, that she thought her life was in danger. But all of this is now the subject of an investigation, and the district attorney there in Denver is expected to determine whether or not appropriate use of force was used in this case.
Erin McLaughlin, thanks so much for joining us. Sure. And turning now to that shocking story of a 6-year-old boy in Virginia who shot his teacher earlier this year. You might remember that story. Today, it turns out his mom pleaded guilty to felony child neglect over that incident. And Deja Taylor could serve up to 6 months in prison, but ultimately it will be up to a judge to decide her sentence in October. And this is just one part of the legal fallout from that January shooting that left a first-grade teacher seriously hurt. NBC's Kathy Park is at the courthouse where all of this unfolded.
Tonight, the legal fallout deepening for the mother of a Virginia boy who shot and seriously injured his first-grade teacher. Deja Taylor pleaded guilty to felony child neglect, which could carry a prison sentence of up to 5 years.
Does she still feel responsible for what's happened?
Oh, yeah, she feels very responsible, feels very bad.
Taylor already pleaded guilty in federal court in June to using marijuana while possessing a firearm. In the courtroom today, prosecutors shared new details about the moments after the 6-year-old shot Abby Zwerner at Rich Neck Elementary, saying he shouted, "F you, I shot my teacher," before breaking free and punching a staff member in the face, and later saying he stole the gun from his mom because I needed to shoot my teacher. His teacher is still recovering from injuries to her hand and chest.
So I have a scar up here, and I still have some bullet fragments up here.
She spoke to Savannah Guthrie earlier this year.
I remember him pointing the gun at me. I remember the look on his face. I remember the gun going off.
Zwerner has filed a $40 million lawsuit against the school district. Her attorney writing in part, "Our focus remains on justice for Abby and holding the school system accountable for failing to act on warnings a boy had a gun." Newport News Public Schools said in a statement that it cannot comment on legal actions.
According to the family attorney, the boy still has regular contact with his mother, but is currently in the custody of his great-grandfather. We've also learned that he's in therapy and improving every day.
Kathy Park, thanks so much. And coming up, we are finally finding out more about the U.S. soldier that bolted across the North Korean border. Those details are just after the break, so stay tuned. Hey there, welcome back. Let's take a quick look around the world in 80 seconds. In Germany, 7 people were hurt after an accident at the biggest theme park in the country. It's a place called Europa Park near the French-Swiss border. A German news outlet reports that a pool with diving platforms collapsed with people on it, and the cause of the accident isn't still clear. And another political leader was killed in Ecuador yesterday, the 3rd politician to be killed there in a month. His name was Pedro Briones, a local leader of the former president's party. Now, this comes less than a week after the country's presidential candidate, Fernando Villavicencio, was assassinated in broad daylight. And an explosion at a market in the Dominican Republic has killed at least 11 people. A 4-year-old baby is among those dead. It happened yesterday just west of the capital, Santo Domingo, and a few hours ago, the country's health minister said authorities have still not been able to reach the area where the explosion happened because the site was still burning. No official word on what caused that explosion. And 4 Australian surfers, along with 2 Indonesian crew members who went missing on Sunday, have been found. A family member of one of those surfers says they were spotted just bobbing around on their surfboards. One crew member, however, is still missing. They all took boats out some 90 miles from Indonesia's Sumatra Island. before being hit with bad weather and very bad rain. And breaking news out of North Korea tonight, the country's state media is claiming that the U.S. soldier that ran across the border last month was upset because he was being discriminated against by the U.S. Army. This is the first time North Korea has publicly acknowledged Private Travis King's status, who ran into North Korea after joining a group of tourists in the South Korea area near the demilitarized zone, or the DMZ, last month. U.S. officials said they think King crossed the border intentionally, but they can't verify all those comments coming out of North Korea. And turning now to a small town in Missouri that was recently named the UFO Capital of the Show Me State. Piedmont residents have this long history of reporting UFO sightings dating back decades, and our NBC affiliate in St. Louis gives us a closer encounter of what's going on there.
In small towns across the Show Me State, seemingly everyone has a story.
My grandpa loved to spin a tall tale.
But in Piedmont, Missouri, the stories are out of this world.
I mean, I had a gentleman sit at my desk and cry because of how things that he's seen have illuminated and changed his life over the years. My husband and I moved back here a few years ago. He swears he saw some kind of lights.
The Wayne County community was named the UFO Capital of Missouri after a 1973 incident that drew national attention.
There were over 500 reported sightings of UFOs in the area.
One resident said that if they had to estimate, half of the residents had seen something in the sky. Clearwater Lake kind of becomes another kind of epicenter of this. Is there's people who are reporting seeing lights above the water, they're reporting seeing lights under the water.
The FBI came in back then, and tons of military, the Air Force bases, just trying to prove that it was something explainable.
Over the years, many of these sightings have been determined to be aircraft or even weather phenomenon, but that doesn't explain why many sightings are still occurring today near Clearwater Lake.
There was this light, it was like a star, and it just sat up there above the light. We're watching it, and all of a sudden it went doot, 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 doot. It went whoop, 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 and went to the side, went back. I'm like, what are we watching?
It was zigzagging and acting very odd.
Dr. Darren Bauer and his girlfriend, retired Air Force Colonel Tracy Edwards, shot this video over their Piedmont area farm.
I don't understand it.
I know, I've never seen this happen before.
It was frightening, actually, to me.
It started getting closer to us, like, something tells us we should probably go inside.
It was too close for comfort for me. I didn't even look out the window. I didn't want anybody to look out the window. And I knew what it was. I knew it truly was a UFO.
It's unknown what exactly they captured on video.
Definitely something in the sky doing that. What else could that have been? I mean, a UFO of some sort, it'd have to be. I don't see stars doing that.
I think people saw something. What that was, I don't know.
It's maybe a little self-centered to think that we're the only thing out there in the whole universe. Am I saying that, there's aliens that live under Clearwater Lake that are beaming UFOs up out of the lake? Probably not.
But a doctor, a former Air Force colonel, some interesting stories coming out of Piedmont there. That does it for us tonight. I'm Gadi Schwartz. We'll see you tomorrow. But until then, stay tuned now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.